Alright, what's going on everyone? My name is Cameron. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to finally be looking at doing a little bit of cleanup on the code that we've written in the To-Do application. Majority of that will be on the client side. Obviously, majority of the work that we've been doing has been on the client side. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at taking the API calls that we're making and kind of making those a bit more usable, because you've probably noticed we're doing a lot of repeating in the code that we've been writing, as well as we've been doing some hard coding in some places that that we otherwise might want to generalize. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this. I am first going to, here in the source directory of our application, make a new folder. I'm just going to call this API. I am then going to create a new file. I'm just going to call this http.ts. And from here, I am going to export some general functions. So these functions are basically going to mimic that of axios. So with that said, I'll go ahead and keep this open here to the side, but I'm going to say export const get equal, and then I'm just going to duplicate this a few times. I'm going to create a post, a put, and then a del, because you have to do del. Obviously, delete is a reserved word in JavaScript, so we're not going to be able to use that as our function. So del it is. So that being said, I can now basically just generalize this. Obviously, we know that these are going to be async functions. So there we go. These will take some parameters. I'm going to say URL and then options. We'll map out what these look like in a minute as far as the types go. And then we could do this one of two ways. We could do return axios dot and then do however we want, or we don't even need these brackets. For now, though, I'm just going to do it this way. Just in case there's something that I need to do. Maybe I need to merge some headers or something. So we're going to do .get. This is going to take a URL and then options. So, and then from there, we can simply do that. There we go. Now, our post is going to be a bit different. So it's going to take a URL, a body, and then options. This could be body, data, whatever you want to call it. And then it will be almost exactly the same, but it's going to be a post. And post, if you look at how that breaks down, it's going to take a body before the options. So now we have that. So here we can 100% copy. This will be exactly the same. There we go. And then this will be a put. And then we're going to do the same thing with the get here. We're going to say URL and options. There we go. And so now we can start looking at defining the types for the inputs. I like to go ahead and, if you're doing JavaScript, obviously this isn't something that you need to do. This is strictly for the TypeScript users out there. If you're not using TypeScript, definitely recommend it. It definitely makes your code more understandable, easier to debug. I definitely recommend it. So just say I get request params, URL, string, options, and you're going to understand why I axios. What are the options here? Get axios request config. There we go. And then I get request params. There we go. So that's what we want. And then what I'll do here is this is basically going to mimic that. It's just going to be post, and then the body is going to be a record of string any. Basically saying that this is going to be an object without doing object, because that literally is not helpful. So now this should be I post. We can once again duplicate this. This will be put. This will be I put request params. And then the delete we can make like that. So now I can do I delete request params. I gotta update this. There we go. So now we've effectively typed our functions. We've effectively typed our functions so that we can go ahead and call them from another file. The one thing that you'll probably notice is, using this approach, not much is going to change. So with that being said, how do we address calls like this one, where we have the header? So we're passing this config, but maybe we want to, maybe we just want to send this by default if we already have it. And another thing that we're not accounting for is we're sending this URL, but the base never changes. So with that being said, maybe this should change. Maybe this shouldn't be the URL, but perhaps the path. One thing to consider here is this file is likely going to be living. For the time being, we're only interacting with our base URL, our own API, but there might be other applications that we're interacting with that use a different URL. So you'll see here in just a minute what I'm talking about, but I think for the time being this makes sense. And that's why ultimately I don't think that it's we need to pass this in quite yet, but we will be pulling this out in just a minute. So with that said, let's go ahead and create another new file in API, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this todo api.ts. And from here, we're going to export const register. And so this is basically going to be our register function. It is going to do basically exactly what we're doing in the in our register view component. So if I pull this to the side here, it should do exactly this. The only thing is it will still return a response. We're just going to be basically getting rid of all of this and only passing in this bit here. So let's look at how we're going to do that. The first thing I want to do, though, is this file is dedicated 100% to our to-do API. So we can now go ahead and construct this base URL. So let's go ahead and say const base URL equals, and I'm going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to say process.env.vite API base URL / API. And so we have one little error here that this is going to be for all of you TypeScript users again, and it's just just saying that we need the node types, and then we'll come back to this really quick. So let me go ahead. I'm going to open up the terminal here, change directory into the, I believe it's the client, yeah, the client directory. And then I'm going to do, am I using, I forget which package manager I'm using here. I'm going to do yarn add -d at types node. And that's just for Vite's benefit. It's only a dev dependency. It's not something that we will worry about in production. And now you're probably wondering, well, what about this Vite API base URL? Why? What is that? So if you look at the Vite documentation, I'll leave a link in the description below to that, talking about these environment variables. In order to specify those, we need to create a file we need to create a .env file. You're probably used to these if you have worked with Node or really any sort of backend tool. You're likely used to a .env file in some way, shape, or form. And so I'm creating one that is for development. When we deploy this application, we will likely pull in something from another. We will likely pull something in that we define wherever we're deploying this from. But for local development, we'll want to do this here. That being said, I am doing this in development because I don't want, whenever we do go to deploy this, I don't want this to get, I don't want the .env file to get pulled in instead of whatever I'm defining in the host where I am hosting our application. So I'm going to say Vite API base URL equals, and once again, if you looked at the Vite documentation, any environment variables that you want to expose to your application need to be prefixed with Vite. That's pretty customary, just using modern tooling. Whether you're using Nuxt or Next or Vite, they all have kind of this convention where you use the name of the tool underscore and then whatever you want. So we're going to do HTTP localhost 5000. So that's just the base, and then we're adding on to that the /API, because we know that we know that everything that we are hitting will be including that. I just prefer, whenever I'm defining the environment variables themselves, I prefer to have just the host. And I guess I could always change that to host if I wanted to, but I prefer just the host. So now we can, I'm going to go ahead and open this back up again. We can go ahead and let's just go ahead and take this. We know that this is going to be async. And we are going to return. We're doing axios.post, but we don't need axios.post, right? We just need post. So let's go ahead and import that from HTTP. And now what we need to do is we need to convert this, because this is just a preference of mine. So I did this without even really discussing it. I have a preference of just passing a singular object to functions. In my mind, it's much easier to not break functions if you do it in this manner. You get better better autocomplete from your IDE or your editor of choice by going this route. It's a personal preference. If you wanted to do this with multiple parameters, it's not an issue. That's just how I've done it. That being said, I like having an object and then having everything named. So do what you would like, but that's how I'm doing it. And so with that said, I need to convert this. So we're going to say URL, and then this is our body. And those are the only two things that are required. So now, notice we don't have anything here. So I would say we can probably go ahead and just take this out and make that something that we will pass. So we'll say body. And then there's nothing that we're going to pass here, and then we don't need any of that. We're just doing this. So the only thing left is we need to type this, and then we are going to convert this to another template. We are going to just say base URL / register. I'm going to say interface I register request params body, and we could say I register body params and create that interface also, right? This would give us at least if we were going to do this everywhere, right? If we were going to do this in more than one place, we were going to make this request in more than one place. It's a good practice to go ahead and type this, just so that we don't miss out on anything. So I am gonna go ahead and do that. But as soon as it's done, I will come back. Okay, so now that I've typed that, obviously, as I said before, the types are really only if you are using TypeScript. But I definitely encourage you, if you haven't learned TypeScript yet, to take a look into that. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and we are going to just say, I don't want to say register there, and I want to say register user. So we'll say await register user, and this is where we will go ahead and do body, and we're gonna do exactly what we had. There we go. And now if I do that, you'll notice I get an error here telling me, hey, you're missing password confirmation. So one of those nice things about TypeScript. And you'll notice this looks a lot nicer than what we had before, right? And it's easily traceable to see what's going on. I see, oh, we're making a post here, and this is what post looks like. And the nice thing is let's say that we have decided we're going to make another tool that utilizes the same API. We could then take this and start moving these, or we could take this and convert this into a node module that is then shared between the applications, right? So that makes that's why, like, having this these types defined, that's really nice, because it tells the user what these functions are going to be expecting, and setting those expectations makes for good tooling. So definitely something that I recommend. I can't speak highly enough about doing all of this, thinking about all of this as you're writing the code, and not necessarily just abstracting code away. Really thinking about what and how these are going to be used. So we've gone ahead and we've done register. Let's go ahead now and move over to the login page. This will be very similar, right? So we're going to export const log user in equals async. We're going to also have a body here. We'll say I log user login request params. Then it's going to be basically the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this here. We'll return this. There we go. And then once again, we'll have to convert this. So this will be RL. This will be somewhat similar, right? So this will be template literal, and then we'll do base URL. There we go. Takes a body. We're going to pass a body. So we'll do body. There we go. And we don't need any of this anymore because that's all handled by our post request. There we go. So now we need to go ahead and write those types. So I'm just going to take this. This will be login, and the only thing that we're going to need here is the email and the password. There we go. So now we actually have something that looks like a login request. So now what we can do is we can say await log user in. I actually want to kind of save this. So let's log user in body don't need these anymore, and there we go. So it should look somewhat like that. We don't need the axios import anymore, and you see how well that now look, or how good that looks, how well that turned out. Things are really going our way, and again, what's really awesome about this is all of those things that we were continuously having to write, the then to parse out the data from the request, the catch in case we did indeed have an error. This all gets handled for us now. And there's other things that we could abstract, right? Like you're probably picking up on, like, I mean, this is the same. This is the same. We're probably gonna have more posts and more requests. We could theoretically just have a path and abstract this a little more, but I think that this is fine for now. So the last one that we need to do now is we need to jump over to the home page, and this one is going to be export const get to-dos equals. I'm going to now require a body of, I'm not going to require a body here. I'm going to now simply take this get. This is going to return. Obviously, I need to make this an async function, and then we need to import this because we have not done a GET request yet. And then we need to convert this just like we have been with the others. So let's go ahead and make this a template literal instead. We can remove all of this. There we go. This will want to be options. There we go. And we'll want to say const token equals local storage dot get item token. And then here, I'm going to add another layer just for some added checking and say not if not token. Then console.error. I could probably put like a hook here if I really wanted to, but really none of this should be necessary. It's just for the sake, just for my own sake, to do error missing token. Yeah, there we go. So cool, so we're good. Theoretically, this isn't really needed. This is just preventing a request before it happens. You could do this, you could not, it doesn't really matter. In all actuality, your GET request is going to return basically the same thing. You're going to get a 401 telling you that you're not authorized to, based on the way our API is set up, you're going to get a 401. So however you want to manage it, it's your application. That being said, some other things that you could do is you could include some try catches in here to handle specific cases. But I think if we're going to do something like that, we may keep that for whenever we migrate all of this into our state management library in a future episode. But for now, that is basically all we need. So let's go ahead and do await get to-dos. There we go. We don't need to do this anymore. There we go. And now we can do exactly the same thing here. We don't need this. We can just say get to-dos. There we go. We can get rid of that axios request or the axios usage. So now let's go ahead and fire up the app. And so you're probably realizing that now that the application is running, you're probably realizing, oh, we have an error. And that is because I did something wrong. So let's look at the Vite documentation. I'm going to pull that up. Navigate over to environment variables. And in environment variables, in order to reference them, we have to import in a specific way. In order to access Vite environment variables, you have to use this import.meta.vite and then whatever it is that you've imported. So let's go ahead and jump back to where we were doing that. Here we'll do import.meta.env and then our API base URL. So now if I jump back to the to-do app, reload, it comes up. Very nice. So let's go ahead and log in and see how this works. I'm in. So I have now signed in. I can go ahead and create a new, I can go ahead and create new to-dos. And we have an issue. So we are on submit. We are trying to get to-dos, and it's saying request failed, authorization is not allowed by access control allowed headers, cannot load due to access control checks. and then we get some errors just because we are trying to access something that doesn't exist on the response. So let's come back and look. Post works, but we're not seeing those requests. So let's do some debugging. We can check and see, do we have a token? You'll notice this is just automatically happening. It's saying network error, axios error. So what is actually happening? If we look at the network tab, we'll see that the to-dos is failing. So the issue that we were seeing seems to have been an issue with local development with Safari itself. I actually jumped over to the same application with no changes, jumped over to this is not Firefox, but it's like Firefox, and you'll notice everything's working. Ultimately, what we were running into was some CORS errors. It seems that Safari is likely a little bit more strict on what they will accept, and so with that being said, I made a few alterations on the API side to try to accommodate those things, but ultimately I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole whenever I can just jump to another browser for this particular issue. And we can look into those things later on. But I think if this had been an application that was served up via HTTPS instead of the HTTP localhost that we're looking at now, this wouldn't have been an issue. So with that being said, one thing that I did realize is I totally messed this up. I told you that this on submit should be a get to dos. This shouldn't. This needs to be our post. So we need to go ahead and jump into to do API, and we need to say export const post. We'll say create new to do equals async. This is going to take a body. We'll say I create new to do request params, and then obviously this is going to be a function. We're gonna do this here. We'll say I new to do item. Interface I new to do item. There we go. Obviously, this is just going to take a title. So here we can say title string. There we go. And then we can go ahead and return. And we are going to just return this here as we have for the other requests. And we are going to transform this so that we do it just like our other requests. There we go. We are going to pass a body, and we need to pass some options. So in our case, we don't have anything else that we need, so we're just going to say const token equals local storage.getItem token I'm actually going to remove this. I don't think that we actually need that. And then here, this will be options. There we go. So now we have what we need. So we can reference this from our layer here. We don't need any of this. And you'll notice how much this actually cleans up our code. So we can say create new to do. There we go. We'll need to import that. There we go. And then we'll need to just remove this and say body. There we go. No type errors. Everything looks great. We can remove this token reference and we're done. So now if I refresh, I can say another thing to do and create. It adds it. I refresh and it's still there. So there you go. So that is officially all of our requests. We have migrated everything to a reusable, some reusable functions. Again, something that's really nice about this is, let's say that we decided that we were going to create another application based on the same API. We could then abstract all of this code into a node module that is shareable between the applications. We may even look at doing that a little later on with the CLI tool, actually taking this and migrating this into a package, and then using that same package for the client and the CLI. I think that would be a really cool video. So other than that, I think in the next few videos, what we're going to be doing is we are going to look at developing the user experience out a little bit, maybe giving the user the ability to check things off of their list, and then potentially even building out a profile. We'll see how in-depth we really want to get with that, but we will likely find a way of sharing our to-dos or even potentially our user settings between pages. And we can look at how we will store that in a global application store. Like in Vue's case, it will be Pina. So yeah, I look forward to doing that with you guys in the future. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. As always, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you need to hit the thumbs down, please leave comments down below so that I know what I can do better for you to better understand these videos. Yeah, I appreciate everyone watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.